episode of the Mark and Austin Show here on the Mark Lesko Podcast. We're joined by Austin once again, of course, and we are joined by Chris, a Penn State alum working for CBS Sports now. Chris and I are both communications alumni from Penn State, and now he's in the doing the big boy jobs there with CBS. Fellow diehard Penn State fan, so we wanted to have him on. That's what we love to have on here. So, Chris, thanks for joining us, man. We just wanted to get a little bit of your background, and then we wanted to get your thoughts on the team. You know, get another diehard on here, talk about their thoughts on the team and where you think they're going to go. So,
appreciate you guys having me on. For those who don't know me, my name is Christopher Hess. I'm a fall 2021 graduate of the College of Communications at Penn State. Couldn't see myself, going anywhere else. I've been a diehard since I was little, and State College was like my second home growing up. And as of right now, I'm currently working at WFAN, which is the local sports radio station in New York City, alongside CBS Sports Radio. So it's all under the same umbrella of radio stations and companies. So I kind of bounce back and forth between the two stations doing newsroom work, working in the newsroom, cutting audio. And I'm also a producer for several shows on WFAN and CBS Sports Radio. So my schedule is a little bit all over the place. I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great people. So far, I've been on the job for almost a year now, and it's been very cool working in the media market capital of the world, which also happens to be my backyard. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. So having that access to, high-end media and working with some of the best in the business at literally not even an hour from my house is a really, really cool experience.
yeah, that's the thing about where you're from. Austin and I are both from Central PA. Well, Austin, you're technically Central PA, right?
I'd say Eastern, Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
Originally.
Yeah, so there's not a lot around here. So, we pretty much have Penn State. That's the one nice thing about where you're from. You have a lot of options and a lot of things that you can go to. So do you work with I don't listen to WFAN because I'm not from New York. I mainly listen to Mark Madden because he's a Pittsburgh guy. I'm a Pittsburgh fan. So, but Craig Carton, I think it's Craig Carton and Mike Francesca. Do you work with those guys or?
Craig Carton is not at the station anymore. He does stuff for FS1 now. He has his own show in the morning. And then Mike Francesa, he's been retired for quite some time. But those are the guys that I grew up with listening to for the talk radio that I listened to when I was a kid. A lot of Mike Francesa that he's, you could put him up there as one of the best radio personalities of, modern radio. You put him up there with Mike Francesa, Steve Summers. Those are two of the OGs of the fan. But now you have guys like Boomer and Gio, Tiki and Evan, Sal and BT. Those are the main personalities that you have. But then for CBS Sports Radio, it's a conglomerate of everybody. You have Maggie and Perloff, who I've yet to work with, but I've seen them around quite a bit. Zach Gelb does the afternoon drive and does a fantastic job. I've worked with him before. You have the JR Sport Brief too, which is also really good. I mean, you have people at both stations that are just so immensely talented, and you're sharing the airwaves with some of the best local people and some of the best national people. So getting to work side by side with them is really, really cool.
Yeah, I always find it cool when they have these guys on the radio that are like NFL Hall of Famers or actually played their sport. So I always find that really interesting. When I was at Penn State, Chris, our freshman year was when the Sandusky scandal happened.
Okay.
And I did a walk-on tryout for football. So right before everything that happened there, I was in Haluba trying out for football, and then everything blew up after that. So when I had my talk show at Com Radio and when I was working at Com Radio, we were covering Bill O'Brien and that team, which was kind of bittersweet and, exciting because it was new. So really the only guys that I've really, I guess, even covered / worked with, because I used to cut his presser sounds, was Bill O'Brien, and at that time he was like super famous because he just came off of a nearly undefeated season. So while at Penn State we didn't get to work with like guys like that, that's really cool that you get to work with guys like that, and I mean you're basically producing their shows. It sounds like, which is pretty cool. So you were in the Belisario College. I don't think I'm trying to remember. I think they had the Curley School of Journalism when I was there. That was it. It was just Carnegie when I was there. Belisario, I believe, is fairly new.
Yeah.
The
new media facilities opened up in the fall of 2021 in the Willard building, and I was fortunate enough to be part of the first group that opened its doors that fall. So I had taken an extra semester because COVID really did a number on some plans that I had for the spring semester of 2020, the fall semester of 2020, and spring of 2021. The intention was to graduate in the spring of 21 when I had entered school, and then right as COVID hit and we went into that lockdown, I'm like, yeah, no, I got to take an extra semester. Like, I'd be stupid not to. And it was the best decision I could have made. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but I was able to make some good memories with a lot of good people that last semester. It was tough, no doubt, to try to make up for 3 semesters that you lost, basically. But nonetheless, I was able to, I'd say, get as close as I possibly could, and getting to, work different events, work with lots of great people. I can't say a bad thing about the sports information directors at Penn State, the people that I've worked with. Everything about that operation was 5-star red carpet material. And it was just, oh God, I wouldn't be where I am today without the people that I worked with in comm radio, the athletic department. Everybody I worked with had such a big role in getting me to where I am today, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a great program. You're right about that. From comm radio to the major and all the professors I had, I mean, they they really wanted you to succeed, and especially with comm radio, you're getting a professional experience because it's you, and when I was there, they throw you right in, and you're hitting the ground running, and you experience it real quick. So, so you said they have stuff in Willard now, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Donald Belisario, the executive producer of Magnum PI and NCIS, he donated, I think it was $30 million to the college to upgrade their facilities. So the little shoe boxes that built a lot of character in Innovation Park, we now have high-end. It's absolutely beautiful. The facility is gorgeous. And everything else, like the studios are absolutely massive. And it's just, there's so much space to, run around, work, and meet different people, work with different people. And it's awesome. It really is awesome. And I tell people that are looking to get into communications and journalism, like, yeah, you can look at an Arizona State or a Syracuse or those types of colleges. Like, yeah, they're known for that kind of stuff and they're producing great talent. But Penn State is a place where you can truly have it all. You can truly have it all at Penn State.
Well, Chris, to be honest with you, I didn't know that. I knew he donated money, but I thought it was pretty much going to Carnegie and upgrading that facility. I didn't know, because what most people don't know is if you took your classes on campus, we took ours out at Innovation Park. So you either had to take the bus or you had to drive out. That's where our classes were. That's where comm radio was. So not only were you way off campus, but you had to be able to get there. So there was a lot of travel back and forth. And then with Carnegie and Willard, that's cool that they upgraded that stuff too. But did you have a talk show
I did.
At Com
I
Radio?
had several at my point in school. I had several talk shows. So at one point, I had a Big Ten hockey show. We only talked about the Big Ten for hockey. Then I had a very general hockey show. It was one of the more popular ones that I did in school, and we actually got a good amount of listeners. It was called Hockey Night in State College. It was me and a few of my friends that we just talked about general NHL stuff. We dove a little bit into college as well because there were other NHL shows, but we're like, okay, we're college hockey fans too. So we're going to dive into that. And then my last semester, or my last 2 semesters, I had a talk show with one of my friends. It was just a general talk about anything the one semester. And then when football season came back for my last semester in fall of 2021, the show was called First and 10, and it was a general like college football talk show. And we had 2 general talk shows that I was the host of. That the first one was called State College Saturdays. It was like a college, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. It was like college game day just on the radio, where we would look at the day's biggest games, and we started doing that fall of 2020 because obviously we couldn't go to the game. So we're like, how can we make this a better how can we make it so that we're still involved in some capacity? The sports directors at the time came up with the idea of doing the Saturday, college game day style radio show, which was a lot of fun. And then we did what's called the Day Late Tailgate on Sundays, which was just you're like a college football final show. You go on the air for an hour and wrap up the biggest games of the weekend, some standout performers, what you're looking forward to for the following week, and just kind of, we would always end the last segment with how our fantasy teams were doing. They turned into a heated debate show with who should why did I start this guy over this guy? Who should I start next week? How's our team doing this week? And it would get a little heated on there, that's for sure.
Well, I'll say one final thing, and then we'll get into your thoughts on the team. But yeah, I was one of those guys that sat in a shoebox and had a show, the Mike and Mark show. It was Mike Wargon. I think he was with ESPN. I checked his LinkedIn the other day. I can't remember where he was, but we talked about college football, and it was fun. But I also had a job working as a trainer on campus, so as soon as I got my show done, he had to drive me really quickly over to Rec Hall so that I could start my shift as a trainer. So there's a lot of stuff going on, man. College can run you pretty thin for sure. So
That's for sure.
And that because you were doing comm radio, you were real busy. So Chris, what are your thoughts on last season, and your thoughts going forward with the team as a whole?
Last season. It was a letdown. It was I wasn't at any point mad or angry. I don't get like that when it comes to just my teams in general. I don't let them dictate my entire being. However, I was just so deflated. I was not, like I said, I was not angry. I was not mad. I was disappointed, but I was more so deflated just because the stars aligned perfectly. You had an opportunity to face the quote unquote worst Ohio State team. I mean, they're still immensely talented. I'm not going to deny that. That would be stupid to discredit them. But you had a golden opportunity to knock them off on the road. Ref ball, this, that, the other thing. It doesn't matter. They couldn't move the ball. You can blame the refs all you want for the scoop and score wiped off the board, but it didn't matter because they couldn't move the ball. Defense played their hearts out. That was the story of the entire season. It's just, this is probably one of those seasons that has the big what if next to it. What if the offense was a little bit better?
Yep.
What if, the defense in some of those crucial third down spots against Ohio State and Michigan converted and got the stop. You can play the what if game so many times, but it all stems back to the offensive struggles. It was just so bad that even I think we were kind of left hanging after that first drive against West Virginia. Like, that was the climax of the offense.
Yep.
And that was play 3 of the season. That we didn't see any sort of offensive explosion and offensive efficiency like that the rest of the year. West Virginia, I think, was their most complete effort offensively. Yeah, they put up 51 against Maryland, but how many short fields did they have in that game?
Yeah.
It was the peak of the offensive production was in week 1. And that's not good. And you can't have that. And I think Franklin made the right move in getting rid of Yurcich. That you could see this building from a mile away. This was not an overnight thing where everything was going so well and then just poof, it went to hell. No, this was building. This was building, I'd say, towards the back end of last year. That, yeah, the offense was serviceable in the back end of the 22 season. They put up a number against Utah. I'm not going to deny that either. That was their best offensive showing in the Yurcich time as offensive coordinator. No doubt that was his best work, but you could see that something was still off. And the more they just tried to address it, more things would go wrong. So that's why I think that was the right move. And it was just very upsetting. And going into the Ole Miss game, you saw the mismatch when it was announced that the two corners weren't playing. A 6'3" big body wide receiver against Cam Miller, who's going to be good in due time. But yeah, that's everything you needed to know. You have a 6'3" wide receiver going up against a corner who's going to be good, but not there yet. It was like baptism by fire, and you just knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah, it was like you said, it was a lot of what ifs. For me, it was extremely disappointing. Had a lot of hope going into this season. Very excited. I thought we would make the playoff, at least beat Ohio State. And then after we lost to Ohio State, I thought, well, we can beat Michigan, but next year it only gets harder. So going forward, Chris, you have like a record prediction. I mean, do you think they make the playoff? Do you think they make top 6? What do you think? I mean, does the offense turn it around? I mean, with Yurcich being fired, like you said, that helps, but
I think going into this year, what people just need to do is they need to take a step back. Fans, like any fan of any caliber, whether you're just a casual fan or a diehard fan, I think you just need to take a step back for a second and examine the whole, the program as a whole. Instead of nitpicking, the past couple of years, which, you have a right to do that, understandable. I'm not going to fight you for that. But I think you need to look at the program as a whole, saying, okay, it's very obvious that they are behind the 8 ball in a lot of things. There is no denying it. You can argue coaching is behind the 8 ball. It is. You can say that maybe recruiting is behind the 8 ball. It could be. These are things you have to take into account. That how is it going to get better? How is it going to get better? You have to get more money into the program because of NIL, because those are the times that we're living in. And I think there's a little bit of disconnect from, the higher-ups and everybody else. And I can understand the higher-ups getting frustrated that they're asking for more money. I get that. I can totally understand that. But the program's stuck in purgatory. You got to do something about it. What that thing is remains to be seen. And I just hate how 10-2 is something that was celebrated under the Paterno regime. And, understand again, 10-2 is nothing to scoff about. Is it disappointing given the times? I'm not going to deny that. It is a little disappointing, but you look at it with a broader lens. Was this a good 10-2 or was it a bad 10-2? Last year was a bad 10-2. No doubt, disappointing. But the year before was a good 10-2. They came off of a 7-6 year where they were left for dead, saying, "Oh, this team's going to go back to being 5-7, 11-2 Rose Bowl champs." That's a nice turnaround. That's how it should be. But I think going into this year, we need to take a step back and just let it play out on the field. Stop getting wrapped up in all the preseason predictions. I have mine. Stop getting wrapped up in those. Let the players play. Let the coaches coach, and let it happen. There's no need. I can understand getting fired up, getting emotional about it, but that doesn't solve anything. That doesn't do anything. So it's not going to do any. They're not going to get any favors this year. They do have a little bit of a favorable draw in regard to conference games, but you still have to go on the road to West Virginia. in week 1. That's not going to be easy. They're returning a lot from last year's team, well-coached team. Neil Brown got his job security back. They're going to be fired up. This is one of their biggest home games. If you exclude the Pitt game from last year, this is one of their biggest home games in a long time for a program that was left for dead as well. You have to go to Wisconsin. You have to go to USC. And then you have to go to Minnesota at the end of November, which is a horror show for a lot of teams. If you can go into that stretch from the beginning of October to the beginning of November, that stretch of UCLA at USC, the bye week at Wisconsin, Ohio State, and Washington. If you go 5-1 in that stretch, you're home cooking. You are cooking at that point because in all likelihood you finish 11-1, compete for a Big Ten championship, likely get into the playoff as a top. Well, if you win it, you'll probably be in the top 4. But if you miss out and you go 11-1, you're going to be in the 5 to 7 or 8 range. And you get a home playoff game. And I think what's going to happen this year is they're going to end up 10-2 again. However, they still get a 5 to 8 spot, like a 7 or 8, and they get a home playoff game. So I don't want to hear a damn thing. If they do go 10-2 this year and get a home playoff game, up 10-2 again, it's like 10-2 will get you into the playoff 4 out of 5 years in the expanded playoff era. And with the schedule Penn State's going to be playing going forward, that Oregon's on the schedule next year, they're going to have Michigan on it in the future. Like, Michigan probably is not going to drop off. These are teams that are going to stay towards the top of the conference.
Yeah.
And if you can go 10-2 with that schedule, I think you're going to get rewarded. I think you're going to be in regardless whether it's just a matter of whether you're on the road or you're at home for the first round game at that point. If you go 10-2, you're going to be in the 5 to 12 spot. You're going to be. We've seen it before that teams finish 10-2 and they're ranked 9th, 10th, 11th. They're going to be in. So I think people just need to realize 10-2 this year, if they stay 10-2 for eternity, this program's going to be a perennial playoff team. What they do with those playoff appearances remains to be seen, but they're going to be within that range to make it.
Yeah, so are you good on time, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so let's get into, because that's a good point. I think every Penn State fan wants that undefeated season and 15-0, and which I do think they are capable of. I mean, we've had it before. This program's 2-time national champions. They're close to 94 could have been a national title. 99, if they finished better, could have been a national title. 05, 08, 17, even 16 could have been a national title. So we've been there before, so we know what it tastes like. We know what it feels like as fans, especially guys, Austin and I's age. Chris, I don't know when you were born, but I was 92. I think Austin's 93, so we kind of remember like 99 and stuff like that. We definitely remember 05, 08. So we, 08, for example, they lost to Iowa on the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just
that was one of the worst losses I had ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, everything about that. I started going in 2003. I was 4 years old when I started going, so that was the heart of the dark years. And I also tell people also, I'm like, listen, you have 2 choices right now. One, realize that 10-2, while it may be disappointing, is what the program is right now, and it's not nearly as bad as you make it out to be. Because you could be 10-2, stuck in purgatory, still be ranked in the top 10, or you could go back to the dark years. Your choice.
So
tell me which one would you want? That's what I want to tell people.
Yeah, so
which one would you want?
Yeah, there was a lot of people that were really emotional after the bowl game, and they were commenting on our show, like Fire Franklin, Aller sucks, stuff like that. I just thought we got beat by a good team. That's all. I didn't blame really anybody. I mean, yeah, Aller, he didn't play that well, but we also didn't have like half our starters. So,
why are you singling out one player? It's a team game. It's a total team effort here. They were not, the team as a whole was not good.
Yeah,
it's a team effort.
Receivers were terrible.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of singling out one player because it's never one. You guys played sports. You guys understand it's never one player, one play. It's never one thing that dictates the outcome of a game. They got smacked by a team that was just better than they were. I mean, yeah, you could say they kept fighting this, that, the other thing, but you still lost the game on the scoreboard. They got beat by a better team. I can live with that.
Yeah.
It's not like they had a lead at any point during the game and squandered it. They never had a chance to begin with. Maybe after the first drive, you're like, maybe they have a chance. And then after that, it was over.
Yeah, and they got beat by a team that is going to be a playoff team. They got a Heisman candidate. I mean, Ole Miss might be like in the top 4 next year. That's how good they are.
Jackson Dart's a legitimate Heisman candidate going into next year. And all Lane Kiffin does is replace, the creme de la creme talent. Did you see he overhauled his defense in the transfer portal? Got the number 1 interior tackle in Walter Nolan. Princely, I forgot how to pronounce his last name, from Florida, defensive end. He's coming to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They reloaded their defensive secondary. They added more wide receivers. Like, this team is disgusting. This is like they're at the trade deadline and they're going all in. They are going all in to make the playoff and make a run in a national championship next year. And whether they do it or they don't remains to be seen, but I wish them luck because that program under Lane Kiffin has done wonders.
Mm-hmm. Austin, go ahead.
I think, Lane's definitely doing a good job for sure. Obviously, their heavy investment in NIL is a large contributor to the pie on being able to get a lot of these guys out of the portal and all that kind of thing too. I think it's a good point about trying to refrain from singling out any one player, especially on the ultimate team sport like football. And that kind of reminds me of a previous conversation we had on the show where a lot of people were bashing like Aller's like confidence, like, oh, he doesn't have any confidence. He doesn't have any. There's no trust there. Like, he needs to build that. I said, why should he have confidence in his receivers? They've given him no evidence to suggest he can trust them. They haven't been making plays all season. They haven't been consistently catching the ball. They haven't been consistently running good routes and getting separation. Like, if I was him, I wouldn't have trust either. Like, there's no, it's hard to trust something when the first 10 times you tried it, it didn't work. It's like, okay, I'm picking up a pattern here. This is disjointed. It's dysfunctional. I can't rely on this, so I got to look somewhere else. And there were a couple of bright spots. Not everything was bad. I thought the tight ends were a bright spot. I thought they made some plays. But wide receivers were a big, big detriment, just objectively. And I think that was also played into the fact of why maybe the running backs weren't as productive, because everyone was like, hey, like, we're just going to play basic coverage and these guys just aren't good enough to beat us. So let's just destroy the running backs. Let's make sure Nick Singleton can't pop big runs and all this stuff. And the offense will be inept. And that's largely what happened through the whole season. But hopefully moving forward, and we'll get your thoughts on that, Chris, what do you think the overhaul is going to look like with 3 new coordinators going into a fresh season? It's a lot of changes, but they got some good coordinators. I know Mark and I are high on them. You can give your thoughts on what you think of the hires and kind of go into, what is your expectation on what that's going to look like?
Well, I want to just piggyback off on a point, Austin, that you just made about, the running backs getting crushed and the receivers, not really doing their job. I think one of the most underrated aspects that was missed this past season was Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange as a blocker in the run game, forget about it. Oh my God. How many times did we see Brenton Strange during the 2022 season kick out, knockout block, and the next thing you know, it's a 40-yard run? It all happens so quick. He pulls, engage, see ya. How many times did we see that during the 22 season with both Singleton and Allen springing big runs because of a block by Brenton Strange?
Yeah, it definitely happened a lot. And I think we talked about that around draft time on how the blocking capabilities that he displayed in his last year definitely assisted in where he went in the draft. I mean, he was a really good blocker, sprung a lot of big runs, and did a lot of the dirty work. And again, to your point, for the casual fan, for sure, none of that stuff gets noticed. You don't notice that stuff. You don't notice the nitty gritty, dirty stuff.
Well,
you like the big flashy things.
That's why he's in the NFL now. So,
a huge contributor, because he's a total tight end. He can catch the ball, he can make plays, but he blows dudes up on blocks, and he sprung a lot of big plays. And they definitely missed that. Tyler Warren, and some of the other guys in that room, they're not the same blockers as Brenton Strange was. Just is what it is. Maybe they can develop that. Maybe they can get better at that this season. But I think Tyler Warren, I think, is probably your kind of best receiving threat. Again, we got a ton of talent in the room. We've talked about it multiple times on the show with Rappleyea and a lot of these young guys that really have a lot of talent. Just
Disgusting.
a lot of.
We gotta have. We gotta have the most deep tight end room in America right now.
Oh, the fact that you're replacing Theo Johnson with a Tyler Warren and then sliding up to replace Dinkins and to replace Dinkins as Rappleyea, and then when Warren leaves, you're gonna insert Luke Reynolds into the equation. Like, are you kidding me?
Here's the thing. I think Luke Reynolds could actually see some time like very soon. He's that good. I think they could all see time, but I mean, this is like Jesse James.
They're all just so good.
This is like the Jesse James room when we were there. But so, Chris, to jump off of that point, you remember Andrew Zerba?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so Andrew Zerba was like a pretty solid tight end, but you kind of thought, in my opinion, I thought he could have been a lot better in terms of his catching. He could have gone into the NFL and actually made an impact. He was with the Falcons for a little bit, but Theo Johnson kind of reminded me of him a little bit, where it's like he's a huge guy. He's a pretty good football player, but it's like there's just something about him where there's something missing. And this year his blocking wasn't good. Again, I thought he improved, Theo Johnson, but in some of his catches, I mean, I believe in the Ohio State game he had a couple drops. So do you think Theo Johnson being there instead of Brenton Strange made a huge impact? Is it more so it wasn't Brenton Strange, or is it was Theo Johnson and not Brenton Strange? Like, Theo's not our only guy, but he's
not going to be an early round pick like Brenton Strange was or a Pat Fryermuth was. I think they're both different in their own way, I would say. You know, Strange was obviously more complete. That guy was built in the factory. Like if you looked up your like everything you want in a tight end, Brenton Strange has it. Theo Johnson definitely does have flaws in his game, but I think Johnson might be a little bit more athletic than Strange is, because he's a freak of nature as well. If Johnson just finds a way, if he finds himself in the right NFL situation to just pull it all together, he's going to be a problem. No doubt. He's a matchup nightmare. He makes contested catches too. But sometimes you find that players, for whatever reason, are better in traffic than they are all alone. And I think Johnson's one of those guys. Like, you kind of want somebody on him at all times because he'll make the big play that way. But if he's open, it's like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's weird. He just doesn't make the play if he's wide open. It's the strangest thing. You would think it would be backwards, but he's better in traffic making contested plays than when he's wide open. It's really weird.
It's almost like he needs like that little bit of external pressure for him to really lock in and stay super focused. And then like when there is no pressure, everything kind of calms down and you get maybe just a little bit complacent with just basic fundamentals, catching the football or whatever. Maybe you just get a little bit too, excited because you're open. You could, I can turn and make this play and, I'm off and running. It's like, well, you needed to catch the ball first. And then we could have did all those things. It would have been great. But you got to catch the ball first. You got to do the little things right all the time consistently. It's what every coach talks about. It sounds super cliche and, kind of cheesy and boring, but like,
but it's true.
It's the truth. Like,
it's true in any sport.
Yeah, it's the classic like do your job kind of mindset. And another thing I think a lot of people kind of don't take into account and think about is on a play, you could have the perfect play call, the perfect matchup given what the defense has given you, and you have 10 guys do everything perfect, and the 11th guy screws up, and the play's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need everybody to execute consistently together as a unit, and if you don't, it runs into problems. So that's why I think a lot of people like kind of jump on Franklin sometimes when he says like we're really not that far away. Like it's literally like one thing here or one thing there that blew up the system, and a lot of people think that's super reductionist, but it's not. Like it's just the truth. Like one faulty cog in the machine and the machine breaks down. It's the same thing in football. Like you need all 11 guys doing all the right things together, and that's when you can generally it's about developing space, getting space up off the line of scrimmage, especially in the run game, but also in the pass game, getting a good release, getting that step, making that move, selling the fake, doing all the little details right all the time to put yourself in the best situation to be successful. And it's just really just from a practical concept, like quick aside to kind of illustrate my point. I got about not 11. I think there's 10. But we're trying to plan about. Got 10 different voices all coming in at once, and everything is so disjointed and dysfunctional. You need cohesion. You need a unifying concept. You need like the play call. That is the unifier. We're all on the same page. This is what we're doing. But every now and again, someone will throw in a monkey wrench that out of left field, out of nowhere, and kind of shake the foundation a little bit of the plan. It's the same thing that we're talking about here. Everyone needs to be on the same page so you can do everything effectively, and kind of in concert, because you could even do your job, but you did it a half second late, and guess what? That's enough to disrupt something.
Yeah.
We've seen it all the time. We saw it in past games and in past seasons. Like quick example would be Saquon Barkley being forced to do magic tricks because there's guys meeting him 2 yards in the backfield, and sometimes he was good enough to just make it work. But like imagine a world where he had 2 yards upfield, he had that much cushion, that much space. That would have been insane.
Yeah.
What he would have been doing.
Well, we have some breaking news. Did you see that, Chris?
I was just about it. You beat me to it. I'll let you break it since this is your operation. I think. All right. I'll preface with this. I think people at this point, after seeing this, buckle up, tighten the seatbelt, get ready, because this is going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So Abdul Carter is moving to defensive end in 2024.
Yes.
Not surprised at all. Dude, he's a freak. So who I'm thinking right now, who he would be like, kind of, is Aaron Maben a little bit, because he's so athletic. But Aaron Maben was long and lanky. Abdul is not really built like that. But just in terms of his athleticism, man, I'm trying to think of a comparison for him from Penn State.
I don't think there is one.
Maybe LeVar. He's got 11.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, just the guys that wore 11 in the past. Everybody was a different brand of linebacker, but
that's interesting
so
that he's 11 at defensive end.
Like, yeah, he came in he was pretty much a hybrid ever since he came into college.
Yeah, well,
Tony
Davis was 11, but he was a corner, so
Yeah.
you don't see 11 on anything other than a linebacker. But I play NCAA football on PS2. I say that on here all the time. I move a lot of linebackers to defensive end because they're just so huge and speedy. Why not put them at defensive end? I mean, but yeah, what do you think about that, Chris? And then
I love it.
I want to get your thoughts on Singleton too after this, but
okay, I'll give the Carter thoughts first. First off, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's something that they should have done halfway through last year, but I understand at the position of need, you had some guys in the linebacker that weren't exactly there yet, and you had a loaded defensive end. So I get that. I'm not going to fault the coaches for that. That was the correct move, keeping Carter at linebacker for all of last year. But when you go into this season, you have Abdul Carter as one of the defensive ends, along with Denai Dennis Sutton, Amin Vanover, Zariah Fisher. You got some dogs. And you can't forget about Smith Vilbert, too, who's been hurt pretty much his entire career. Why is the phone ringing right now? You've got to be kidding me. But back to my point about the linebackers.
I can't even hear it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're good.
Okay. But now you're going to have the likes of Kobe King running the show, who's just gotten better and better as each game's gone on. And now Tony Rojas. Tony Rojas in that linebacker room, bulked up from 195 pounds to well over 230. I watched his little media availability hit the other day, and I'm like, this kid just looks like a lean, mean tackling machine. Just his performance in limited snaps, I'm like, holy crap, what do we have here? The kid is an absolute freak in nature, and he's going to get significant reps. I'm not worried about that defense. I'm just not. There's no evidence to suggest that I should be worried.
Yeah, I agree. It makes to me it makes total sense. I mean, you have a guy who can impact the game.
He's a game wrecker. That's
100%. I mean, very very kind of similar to kind of what we should have done. Again, that kind of got screwed up with COVID with Micah Parsons. I think he would have done a lot more of kind of this type of thing. Maybe, getting him at the end, or just having him rush from the linebacker position like he does with the Cowboys in the 3-4. You got to get your game wreckers into the best situations to wreck the game, and that's getting after the passer. So this makes total sense. I can't say I drew this up like, oh, I definitely predicted this. I didn't. I think it was more indicative of getting Tom Allen to come in, assess where everybody was in the linebacking core, and be like, okay, we can make this move because, Kobe King, great at the mic, no problem. Rojas, who I think is fantastic. We talked a lot about him as a recruit. We were super high on him. He's been as advertised, in my opinion. I think he's looked really good. I think, it's time to welcome him to the show. I think it is his time. If they thought he wasn't ready, maybe they don't make this move. But this tells me they have the utmost confidence that Rojas can come in and play at an extremely high level. I'll just go out and probably say it now, a little bit of a hot take. Rojas probably, given this confidence from the coaching staff, probably an all-conference contender at linebacker.
Yeah, that was your point, Jared, is you love the move because of what else happens by him moving like that. I'm assuming he's got to kind of replace Adiza, even though Denai is kind of more like him. So it sounds like we're probably going to have Denai and then Abdul. But do you think he plays like a TJ Watt type of role? He stands up, he's not down on the ground. Yeah, because I don't know. I just don't really see him in a 3-point stance, 4-point stance.
No. I think if anything, if he does get into a 3-point stance, a la Chop Robinson, kind of like a sprinter stance where he's got the arm back. I mean, I've seen Chop do that before. I'm like, you got to be a real sicko to do that on a football field where you line up in a 3-point stance and you have your arm kind of up and you're ready to do a track get off. You got to be really sick in the head to do that. And Chop Robinson, I guess, was sick in the head because when he would do that, it's like, well, that happened fast.
Well, that's what
as
Nick
the quarterback
does.
As the quarterback looks like a logarithmic equation, just up here. I'm like, oh yeah, he's not looking so good right now. But
now, what I said about Denai, Chris, were you laughing because that's ridiculous? How good they're gonna be. I mean, they have
it's the ridiculous of how the ridiculous laughing of how good they're going to be. I can't even say how good they can be because we've seen all them play before as a collective body, and the defensive ends are just so absurd.
Well, all right. So I want to get your thoughts on. We got to have you on here more so we can talk more about, because it's nice to have two people that cover Penn State football, but then we got a third guy that also knows his stuff too. What's up with Singleton? I mean, hey, Chris. By the way, we got some comments here from one of our viewers. We can answer them if you want.
Okay, what do they got?
I don't know if you have the stream pulled up, but
I don't.
I'm popping them up in the live chat here on the screen.
Okay.
So Jared Allen, we call him Josh Allen's brother. He's a regular viewer. Last year's team had many problems that much, like a microfracture will become worse over time, and it gets worse over time the more it gets ignored. He was just going back to what we were talking about earlier with the team and the wide receiver room, offensive coaching scheme, Aller failing to show progress, which we kind of already covered that a little bit. Tight end room being overhauled. Kalen King made a mediocre season. We can kind of get your thoughts on that too, Chris. But he's just basically saying all those micro issues showed cracks in the team, which I think are good points.
No doubt.
I mean, but it
no
was
doubt.
mainly, I think it's mainly the receiver room. Kalen King definitely could have had a better season. But and then he said NCAA 06 was the best game. I play that too. So
Okay.
I'm playing 08 right now, NCAA 08 on PS2.
Oh, with Jared Zabransky on the front.
Yeah. So exactly. I'm in my I'm at 2015, so and I made an NFL team in Madden. Started out with a cupcake roster. Now they're like 10-time Super Bowl champions with multiple starters from Penn State on the roster. I got Justin King. We'll talk about that. It's funny. It's funny. But yeah, man, what's up with Singleton? Do you have thoughts on that? I mean, I of all the players on this roster, I'm not disappointed in him. I'm just really disappointed that he is not. This kid can win the Heisman Trophy, in my opinion. He's that good, especially after his freshman year.
I wouldn't go nearly that far. If you're going to be a running back winning the Heisman Trophy, you're going to have to run for almost 2,000 yards. It's a quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven popularity award. That's what the Heisman Trophy has become at this point.
Yeah.
Because if it were up to me, Jaden Daniels wouldn't have won the Heisman Trophy.
No.
It would have been either Marvin Harrison or Brock Bowers, in my opinion. But that's not here nor there. But if you're looking at Singleton, I can't fault the guy. I can't get mad at him. Was the performance disappointing? Absolutely. I will not, disagree with that whatsoever. But again, this ties back into what we talked about earlier. If you look in 2022 and Singleton broke the big runs, who was leading the way?
Well, in a number of those situations, it could be. I'll even bring up another guy. In my opinion, I talked about him last show. One would be Brenton Strange, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy, which they did some nice things with, and was just a stalwart anchor in the middle. That's Juice Scruggs at center.
Mm-hmm.
I think they missed some of the stuff that he was really good at as well, just with his consistency of just locking down the interior of that line. Norzad was okay. I think he was okay, but I think there were some things that he just wasn't as good as Juice. Like Juice is a pretty athletic guy.
No guy at 295 should be able to move that well.
No, like that was not. A lot of people they look at that and they don't understand really how impressive that was. So I would say both those guys. I think that played a big role, and I would say in addition to that, I would say it did seem a little like Singleton was trying to be overly correct. Like, let me just run the right way. Let me not bounce. Let me just try to stick to the script.
And that's not his game. That's not his game.
The key, as I see it, there are guys that it is in their best interest to follow the script 95% of the time. But then there's this other subset of folks. It's a much smaller group, like the Saquon Barkleys and the Nick Singletons would fall into this category as well, where because of who you are, because of your athleticism and your gifts, you are allowed to go outside the box. You are allowed to make those plays and those opportunities and to break a couple. And to kind of go outside of the scope of the rule book a little bit, which I think is important. So I would say all of those things probably pretty critical. But just to kind of wrap that up, I think Nick Singleton is not totally absolved. I think the blocking and the loss of those two guys with Strange and Scruggs played a massive role. But I think also, and the coaches should kind of reinforce what I'm saying here too, is like, hey, like, yes, this is the script, but you have the green light to still try and make plays outside of the rule book, because that's the kind of athlete you are. Like, there's some people that can just get away with going off script. He's one of those guys. If he gets back to that a little bit in some timely spots, I think we'll see some of those spectacular runs return as well.
Sorry, I just had to step out real quick. Yeah, Chris, you're right. Who did he have leading the way? That's a great point. That's a very good point. Juice Scruggs, he was a starter for the Texans. He was in the playoff game. Brenton Strange, I believe, was a starter. So, yeah, absolutely. That makes an impact for sure. Just like, and who's blocking for him at receiver too on the outside? I mean, oh my God, our wide receiver room. I just don't remember a time where it was this disappointing.
You probably have to go back to sometime during the dark years.
Yeah, but even then they had a first rounder. They had Brian Johnson. They had Tony Johnson. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking as far back as like 2000. Oh, geez.
2001.
2003 even. The likes of Terrence Phillips and Kinta Palmer running around. I'm like, oh boy. Oh, young me's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Like, I think that was the last time the wide receiver room was like just that underwhelming. That nobody like instilled fear in the other team. It was just like, all right, whatever. It's fine.
There's guys there that are supposed to be wide receivers.
They exist, that's for sure. And I'm not knocking on those guys at all, but I'm just they existed, that's for sure.
Well, the one thing I will say too, and I don't really think we talked about it a little bit, but like Julian Fleming getting added into the mix, like that dude might have been the best blocking receiver in the country last year. Like,
yeah, and he had 2 first rounders ahead of him. So people are saying, "Oh, we get in Ohio State's third receiver." It's like, well, he had Devontae Adams
in the country.
He had Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson in front of him. So it's like, I think he's 3 for a reason. He's got 2 first round picks in front of him.
It's like one of those things where you're like, well, you're the third best. It's like, yeah, but the other guys are top 10 picks. Like,
exactly. I again, that goes back into the casual mindset that the Penn State fan base has. It's just they jump to conclusions so fast. They're happy when they're unhappy. It's like, I would say just be thankful that they even want to come here, because if they saw some of the stuff people are saying about the team, they'd be like, what the hell is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I'm firmly entrenched in this position. Like, there are just some people. There's this small subset of people in any fan base. I mean, we saw it with Ohio State, with a small group of people wanting Ryan Day to be fired and things after going 11-1. Like, what are we talking about? But it's just one of those things. Some people just like to complain. Just it is what it is.
They're happy when they're unhappy. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where they just like to do it. It is what it is. They get some sort of satisfaction out of it. And, okay, but let's try to be more productive than not as often as possible. But yeah, no, I agree. That's a little bit of a silly critique, because Fleming's a good player, and I think as far from a blocking perspective, I think that can't go without mention. Like that. That is for sure a thing. Like,
it's a super, super underrated aspect that when you have your wide receivers blocking on the perimeter, you just throw a pass out in the flat and you get a convoy in front, and the fact that your wide receiver is leading the way, it's like, all right, this guy's buying into what we're doing here. This guy's ready to roll up his sleeves and get after it. It's like, yeah, I'll catch the ball. I'll do fly sweeps. I'll block. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And just the intel that I've been reading and what I've seen out of him, he's that type of player that's willing to do whatever it takes just to help his team in any way possible.
and usually another key component to that is oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, that kind of play and that kind of mindset is contagious. And other people also buy into that. And then that's where you can be really good, because all your best players are totally cool with just scrumming it up and doing the nitty-gritty dirty work too. And that's when you can get just exceptional teams.
Robert Parker says, still think the biggest problem with the offense last year was the dysfunction in the coaching staff. Yeah, I mean, Yurcich, we were talking about confidence in Aller. Yurcich, I think, was the type of personality where I don't think Aller was comfortable with him at all. Because as a player, I've had coaches that gave you confidence and coaches that didn't give you confidence. And when you have a coach that doesn't give you confidence, that added pressure is on your shoulders. Because I did play quarterback for a lot of my life, and yeah, I've had coaches that you were cool and comfortable with, and coaches that you weren't cool and comfortable with. So I think he just didn't have the personality to be with. I don't know why he recruited him, but it just didn't work out. It was so odd the way that worked out. But I think Kotelnicki, I've heard, listen to Justin King's podcast, stuff like that. He has a personality that I think will mesh well. And you say this too about, and we'll get into our final topic here. I got to hit the gym, and I'm sure we all got stuff to do. But
yeah,
moving Abdul to D end, that's a Tom Allen thing right there, man. That's the thing about all of these coaches that we talked about. They have so much talent. It's not even funny how much talent they have. I mean, Ty Howell, as talented as we are at like pretty much all positions, Ty Howell probably has the deepest room on the team. I mean, he has so many 5-star guys. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Georgia and Alabama are probably like sitting on our doorstep at Lash every day trying to get one of our 5-star tight ends just to transfer. They're like, you're never going to play. Just come here. But Robert Parker said, just look at Cliff as a 6-year guy. He still had problems just getting the playoff.
I think that's just kind of in reference to kind of Yurcich again too. The dysfunction, like, and we've talked about that on the show too. Like, there are just some opportunities where like there's a delay or you got to burn a timeout or something because like dude, like get the play call in. Like, what's taking so goddamn long? Like, it's, even with Cliff, a guy that 6-year quarterback knows all this stuff. He knows the playbook. He knows the plays. He knows what he's looking at. All this stuff, and it was still a problem. So I understand what he's saying there. It seems to me like Yurcich, and I've had some beat reporters I've bumped into say this. It just seemed to me like Yurcich was just kind of an abrasive guy. Like, he kind of went about things like he was just a higher minded individual, and that can rub people the wrong way. I don't know if you watched Franklin's presser on Tuesday, the first media availability, and he did not refer to Mike Yurcich by name. He referred to him as the last guy.
Oh boy.
Like, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it's like, I don't know, man. I suspect like people got rubbed the wrong way there. Like, also, it's very unusual for Franklin to ever fire somebody in the middle of a season that's still ongoing. Like,
well, who was
there
the last
had to
guy?
just been some issues. Well, it was Yurcich. That's who he's referring to. The last guy.
Yeah. But the guy before that he fired mid-season. That was when Hackenberg was there. That was Donovan, wasn't it?
I don't think they fired him mid-season. It was right at the end of the season.
It was the day after the bowl game. So it was right after the season ended.
Who was the guy they fired in 2014? Right after
that was John Donovan.
Yeah. You remember that, Chris?
Donovan got fired at the end of right after they lost to Georgia in the Gator Bowl in 2015. It was not even the day after. I think they probably left him in Jacksonville, if we're being honest.
They said, don't even bother getting on the plane.
It was like first thing smoking after the game, they canned him, and everyone's just like, thank God.
Well, I even said that to Mark. And I've been a pretty staunch like Franklin supporter for a lot of reasons. But I even said that. I was like, yo, if this guy does not fire this guy after what we just watched, I'm kind of off board with him. So when I saw that come through, that he was canned immediately, I was like, there's hope. Like, thank the Lord that this just happened, because that guy was bad. Nothing worked.
Austin, we were talking about it before when the game where two Penn State guys blocked each other. What did they do after that game? Remember, I was saying I was like back home with my girlfriend at the time, and I was just like so depressed because we were so bad. What did they do with Donovan after that? I thought they fired him, or they must have just he relieved him. He moved him or something. Remember that after the Northwestern game, they lost like 29-6 or something.
Yeah, I remember the game, I remember that.
I think they just relinquished his play calling duties at that point.
There was something
but
that
happened. They still kept him on staff for the following year, which made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. That was the whole thing was just a total nightmare. I mean, that was just a train wreck. Yeah, but that's one of those things. Like, you had a guy that was objectively like that bad, like John Donovan, and he still waited till like it was immediate, but like the season played out and then he was gone. But like this guy, we got a couple games left. Nah, we're done with this. I'm out. And I looked back. I didn't see since all the way back to when he first became a head coach at Vanderbilt. I've never seen an incident of James Franklin firing somebody with games left to play. Yep. Not once. So like things had to have been out of the ordinary in this situation for him to do that.
Chris, last point here. Do we get it done under Franklin? Do we win a national title? Do we at least... Okay. Three criteria here. Do we make... Oh, man. Do we make top 4? Do we make a national title? Or do we win a national title under Franklin?
First point, at some point under Franklin, yes. I think they do get top 4. There's going to be a year they do win the Big Ten. Not sure when it's going to be. They will win the Big Ten and will get a top 4 spot. And the last 2, I'm going to say no. For the main reason of, yes, Penn State has the potential to be a really, really great program and a playoff mainstay. No doubt about that. I will ride that narrative. I will ride that thought. But in regard to winning a national title, I think the only way that they do get a shot is if they have like an LSU 2019 type of season where the guys that they pool together just go absolutely crazy, because no matter how good a Penn State team is, I still don't think they'll be up there with the Georgias of the world, the Bamas of the world. And Georgia and Bama, I don't think are going to fall off anytime soon. They're still going to be the crown jewel of the sport. Do I think Penn State could give them a good game? Absolutely. But they're just so much better than everybody else, basically. And I truthfully I think regardless of whoever the coach is, I don't think this program gets it done. I think there's still too many obstacles in the way for it to get done. And I'm not saying it won't happen, but I just think they have a lot more to go through rather than, some of the big dogs of the sport.
Yeah, and being from Central PA, around State College area, I'm not a townie, so I'll just get that out there real quick. I'm not a townie, thankfully. People are still stuck in 1986, man.
Ding, 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 ding.
And, there was so many times, 94, even 97, 99, 05, 08, we could have won a national title. We could have at least been in one. So it's like the Steelers in 05. They were stuck in the 70s. They had to win their own title and have their own identity. Joey Porter said it, senior. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like, God, we've been so close so many times. Like after 08, losing to Iowa, we just beat Ohio State. I was crying like a baby because I knew we were that close, and we lost to Iowa. I hate Iowa. I hate them.
It was just so brutal losing that game, because if the 2005 team went undefeated, they still would have finished third, even though they were undefeated. because Texas and USC were still in front of them, and they were going to make sure that it was a Texas USC national title game. But in 2008, they beat Iowa. They go play Oklahoma in the national title game, and we're not talking about the 2008 Florida team. We're not talking about them. But do I think they beat Oklahoma? No.
Now, do you think 05 could have beaten Texas or USC?
No. Maybe Texas, probably not USC. Texas played the game of their damn lives that night. And I think if Penn State played Texas, I think they give them a game, probably lose close. I think that USC team would have beat them by probably 10, maybe 12. They were just so good at every position. As good as Penn State was, it was no USC at that time. Different brand of ball. It wouldn't have been a good matchup, I don't think.
Outside of forcing a lot of turnovers, I think the USC passing attack probably too much for that secondary. I don't know that they would have been able to run the ball that well, though. That defense was very good.
Yeah.
They had a lot of. They had a lot of first-round guys. They had the crew at linebacking core as well. So the liability would have been the pass defense for sure. In my opinion, it would have been interesting. Had it been a USC defense of today's standards, I think they absolutely could. Because boy, those boys couldn't tackle water if they jumped out of a boat.
Oh my God.
But the different era, obviously those are two all-time great teams. But I think it's nice to at least have the conversation because that 05 team was pretty good.
And before I dip out of here, the one hill I will die on until literally I'm 6 feet under. The one hill I will die on is, I'm sure you guys will agree with this, if the 94 team played the 94 Nebraska team, Penn State's 94 team not only wins, but beats the brakes off of that Nebraska team. I don't think it's particularly close. I think it's a 51-20 type of game, just because the defense was not that great. They were okay, but nobody could outscore the offense. They were as close to a point per minute as you could get. They were just so efficient, electric. Anytime they touch the ball, it's like they could score right here.
Yeah. Well,
that was a bogus finish to that.
4 rushing touchdowns against Ohio State that year. But it was like 2019 LSU. You said that, Chris, that they're gonna have to have a season like that. Because 94, they would have beat Nebraska. Lawrence Phillips wouldn't have had a shot against our defense.
Oh please, it would have been a bloodbath. It just would have been over the first drive of the game. If Penn State got the ball first in that game and they scored, it would have been over.
Yep.
And they probably would have.
Yep. I agree.
That offense was near unstoppable.
That's one of my favorite videos to watch too, a compilation of the 94 offense. If I'm bored one day, I'll just watch it. I'm like, it's like poetry in motion. You're just watching it and it's just beautiful. Oh.
I totally agree. I don't think had those two teams played, I don't think it's particularly close. I think, and that's the other thing too. A lot of people, they're like, oh, the 94 team, they had a great offense. Their defense wasn't that. Their defense was pretty darn good.
Yeah,
like that defense was good.
Not really like good. It's not your prototypical Penn State shutdown defense. They were still solid. They were still very solid.
Oh yeah, they were still good. Like they were still more than good enough to win a title for sure. But it's just the offense was that good that it just kind of overshadowed the rest of everything. But yeah,
it was a perfect storm.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. That's not that game wouldn't have been particularly close.
All right, guys. Chris, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you on, man.
Guys.
Yeah,
I had a blast. This was fun.
Yeah, we'll have you on. We're going to be covering depth charts here soon on this show. For Penn State, we're going to be covering the draft. You definitely seem like a draft guy, so I think we could have you on for that.
No, I love the NFL draft. My roommates always made fun of me because they're like, you're not a big NFL fan, but you're big on the draft. I'm like, yeah, because that way I can just point out on the TV where those guys went to college. They're like, yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah. Did you do that at Calm Radio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did the draft coverage.
Yeah.
I had doing those draft profiles. I had so much fun doing those because you learn something new every time, even if it's a player you're familiar with. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I just learned something today. This is cool.
Yep. All right, Chris. Again, thanks for coming on. We'll have you on again, and then you have a good day. Have fun there at CBS Radio, man. It's good to have a Penn State guy on here. Same major as me and everything. So
Always, guys. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to the next.
Yep.
Have
See
a
ya.
good one, guys.
See you, Chris.
All right, Austin. Let's answer some of Jared's questions real quick, and then
we'll finish off with some of the questions.
So Jared Allen, Matt Canada versus John Donovan. Worse OC. John Donovan for sure.
Low key, I'm gonna go Matt Canada, and that's do you know why I say that? I say that because I do acknowledge that whilst Donovan was horrible, they didn't have anything that was even close to resembling an offensive line. They had, what did they have? 6 scholarship linemen? I mean, that's a hell of a liability. And Canada had, he had offensive linemen at Pitt, and he had, maybe not the greatest, but still professional offensive linemen with the Steelers, and just really couldn't do anything. And that's just that's the only distinction that I would make. But I do think they're very close. And if you're asking me, would I want either of them? The answer would be absolutely not.
Kajana Carter returning kicks for Cincy. This is Robert Parker. Went, I hate seeing Nick back there doing it. Yeah. Well, Kajana tore his ACL on a run. It wasn't a return. But, again, that was back when starters played preseason. I mean, well, I do think starters should play some preseason. I mean, you had Kajana Carter, third play of his career preseason on that old, terrible turf, popped his knee. And again, we've covered it. We'll talk to Chris about it more in the future. The lifting program is what made the difference, I think, between beating USC in 05 or Texas in 05 or beating Oklahoma, Florida in 08. The lifting program made a huge difference. It was very outdated. So Kajana Carter was doing leg press his whole freaking career at Penn State. Yeah, man. As soon as he steps on turf that he probably hadn't played on except for Illinois, of course his knee is gonna buckle. He has no support on the outside because he's doing leg press. You have to do free weights. That's a huge hit. But that's another thing. You might have had some damage in there beforehand that they didn't know about. But my God,
it's one of those things where when you've locked yourself into very limited ranges of motion for a joint, and then you go and play on something that I think everybody, what did the NFLPA, didn't they just vote overwhelmingly, 98% of the players want turf gone, they want all grass fields?
It's terrible, man. It's
pretty obvious because there's no give. If your foot gets caught in the turf, it doesn't rip out and give way. You are the thing that gives way, which is a problem.
Yeah.
Then you get hurt, you get injuries, all these things. So you look at it from a perspective where you're not stimulating a joint in a wide enough range of motion based upon the training protocols and things. And then you couple that with going onto the AstroTurf where your only solution, your only flexibility and wiggle room for your joints, if your foot is caught in the turf, is to go into those ranges you are not experienced to be in and have to hold up to or produce very high forces. Shit breaks. It's that simple. And that's largely what happened there.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like a tree. A tree doesn't move. So if you are going towards a tree, it's not going to move out of the way for you. Well, I was going to say too that okay, so for those of you who lift at Planet Fitness or what Planet Fitness is like, okay, so go in there and lift for 4 years at Planet Fitness with some heavier dumbbells. Okay. Go into a Planet Fitness, lift there for 4 years, and how's that going to translate to a football field. It's really not. That you know, and you're doing 3 sets till failure in a Planet Fitness. How is that going to translate to football? Just ask yourself that question. That's what Kajana Carter was doing for years and years and years. That's why Curtis Enos was a bust. Blair Thomas was a bust. Because I think that was the first year that they had that lifting program was when Blair Thomas was there. Who else? Larry Johnson wasn't a bust, but Curtis Enos, Blair Thomas, Kajana Carter.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things too where, especially in the sports enhancement kind of situation, which is what the strength and conditioning programs that any university is attempting to do, really high repetition sets to failure is kind of like more like endurance or metabolite kind of work. Like, you really ought to just be biasing more developmental strength protocols and developmental power / explosiveness type stuff with your cleans and all these types of things, which they do now. Why? Because it is more translatable to the football field, because you're doing very rapid, explosive type actions. You know, you're coming off the ball, you're coming off the line of scrimmage, immediately engaging in resistance against a defensive lineman. Or, you know, you're sticking your foot in the ground, you're getting vertical up the field very, very quickly and trying to explode and get up to top speed as fast as possible. Like, it's just a lot more similar. So, you know, the biggest key, and for those that are interested in fitness or whatever you're doing for your training, if it's violating the first kind of principle of specificity for what you're trying to do, that's a problem. It's probably not in your best interest to be doing that. And that's kind of why I think we critique that as kind of harshly as we do sometimes.
All right, we pretty much answered every other question. I'm going to play a college football teaser here. Well, all right. Austin, no, you can't see it, but I'm going to play a teaser here, and then I got to get to the gym.
Likewise, friend.
Austin has to probably train some people.
I gotta work out. I gotta finish my newsletter and publish it, and then I gotta train some people.
Got something special for y'all. A little update for our fans from the Big House to the Bayou, from Carolina to California. Yeah, it's about college football. We know you love it. Us too. The rivalries, comebacks, the traditions and superstitions built by generations. There's nothing like it. Turns out, we've been building too. So let's address the big owl in the room. Yeah, we've seen the posts, the predictions, the doubts. We get it. It's been a minute. Let's just say this ain't the only jersey we've been working on. The game this sport deserves. 'Cause pretty soon, this place will be full again. Until then, cue the crowd noise.
Well, I'll just say this. That's EA Sports College. Bring back NCAA. I've been following him for a couple of years. He's been on top of that since. So, all the doubters right now, I really don't get it. I don't know why they would say, they already suspended it a year. Why would they suspend it again? But yeah, it's definitely coming back. You saw the logo there. That's official as of today, I think. Jared Allen asked, have you thought about live streaming at an actual game day? Do you mean at the game or just live streaming during the game? I almost did that during the Super Bowl. Just hopped on Rumble and started. And I'm not sure why Rumble wasn't working today. Jared pointed that out, so thanks, Jared. I'll just post this on Rumble. That's all. So we're just live streaming on YouTube right now. It'll be on Spotify and Apple Pod too. Yeah, so we have thought about that, Jared. So just to kind of get into like some logistics here, because there is a lot that goes into a podcast that I don't mean Jared. I just mean I think a lot of people don't realize. It's a lot of work. And I have one of my family members cutting sound for us now because it's a lot of work. And, on YouTube, we're getting close to being monetized. We've gained a couple more followers. I've been posting like the shorts, like the NFL busts, and those have been getting like at least a couple thousand views. And I get like a couple followers here and there out of it. But first of all, I want to get to 500 on YouTube. So whoever can help us with that, that'd be great. Get to 500 subscribers on YouTube so we're monetized. We're already monetized on Rumble. We've already made money from Rumble. But I think what it's going to come down to is eventually I'm going to make this podcast official, get an LLC, and then I'll probably get a business loan. And that means, it's all tax deductible. I'll buy equipment. I'll probably hire a small staff. And basically Austin and I will be the faces of it. And yeah, we will go to Penn State games from tailgates, what have you. But that's just going to take some time and money because we're going to need service, first of all. So we'll probably have to buy some sort of remote service, like whatever they call that, Elon Musk internet.
Starlink.
Yeah, something like that. We'll have
somehow you have to leverage getting a direct data cable for like through the university or some kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll probably need like some sort of tent for the wind and possible rain.
Or maybe with the upgraded service that's supposed to be in the renovations, maybe it just all works. Wishful thinking, I know, but maybe.
Well, I wish Penn State almost kind of had opportunities for, they have like booths for like comm radio and stuff, but you have one of the largest living alumni in the world, and you have guys that cover the program. Why not have little booths that you can kind of almost rent or sit in, where you can have your own broadcast? I mean, you don't have to be official, if you buy a suite, they really don't know who you are. So just
low key, that's actually something I would even consider bringing up to them, like to like a university representative, and just be like, hey, like, have you guys ever thought of like, even like in the stadium? I mean, they're doing all this extra stuff with like this special thing that you can look out the window through the tunnel and all this crap for an exorbitant amount of money and all this stuff. Have you thought about putting in like little, like, they don't need to be gigantic, but like little, content creation studio setups, and like you could rent those out for games, because I'm sure people who like to do this kind of thing, I'm sure they would rent them out, and like everything's set up, you have access to the internet, all these types of things. I mean, that's another opportunity for them to make money too. So it seems like it would be a synergistic thing, especially at a university that takes a lot of pride in their communications and their journalism and their broadcast journalism type professions and things.
Well, Chris was saying about all those renovations. I knew they got money and stuff, but I didn't know they did all that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had no idea either. That was good education for us.
Literally, the studio and my room, like fairly small where I'm at right now. It was like half my room. That's how big the studio was. It was a shoebox, like he said.
You had to turn sideways to come in.
If you watch I believe it's like the comm radio podcast or the Penn State podcast, where they've interviewed like bands, and they interviewed that Feeney girl, that TikTok famous girl, which I Honestly, I don't even know how that's even a thing to be TikTok famous, but it is. And she's but good for her. She's always on the sideline and stuff. I think she's in the communications. I mean, that girl, I would hope that she has a good experience at Penn State, and then hopefully at some point helps build the comm department, because I'm sure she has a lot of money on. I mean, this girl has millions and millions and millions of followers. She's famous, and she's like a sophomore in college. So, but. And at some point, I'd like to get involved with comm radio. We're going to have interns. We're going to have people working for us. We're going to have people writing for this podcast. We don't have a website yet, so we're still pretty early on. It just takes time. I'm not rushing into anything. The most important thing is consistency with broadcasting this podcast. Austin and I are consistent with broadcasting. And that's one thing because this is like my podcast and this is our show, one of the hardest things to do is have someone like Austin who actually shows up every day and, is there and consistently there. I mean, that's hard to find. So Austin is that guy. So that, that's a hard part. So I got that. So we just got to build it. And I want to be monetized on these social media platforms first, like YouTube, Rumble, get established there, and then we'll grow it. But it's gonna, this is gonna be, it's gonna be kind of like a long journey. I thought on YouTube we would be monetized after this season, but we weren't, and that's okay. But there may come a time where we're just exclusively on Rumble if YouTube doesn't work out. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I would just want all of our audience to come over to Rumble to follow us. But Jared said it's the same battle of a brick restaurant versus the food truck. They don't get along. Same for Mobile Game Day Podcast and the establishment. Yeah, so we would have, no affiliation with Penn State. Besides, maybe working with comm radio, I don't ever foresee a time where we are going to be in a position like Steve Jones, for example. He really can't criticize Penn State, James Franklin. I don't want to be in a position like that where we can't say what we want. Pat McAfee just did that. He can't say what he wants anymore because he's with ESPN. I've said it a million times. Not the biggest fan of Pat McAfee. I think he's just kind of, you got to admire the guy for how successful he is, but he went to ESPN. I mean, I'm not surprised he did that because I just don't think he's the brightest, but he can't say what he wants now. I mean, he's on ESPN. What do you think is going to happen? It's ESPN. So, but I digress. Eventually, there's a lot of plans that I have for this podcast, but right now we're doing the best thing that we can do is just consistently post content. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. And we're growing by having guys like Chris on here, guys like Anthony, guys like Greg Garrity, Dante Brown, some former players, some guys that are either starting podcasts, sports channels, or guys that are established in big time media like CBS Sports. And I'm going to build it genuinely. I'm going to build it the way I want to. And that's with guys like Chris, who's a diehard Penn State fan. I don't want to have, that's the thing I said about other podcasts too, is it's robotic. It really is. You got guys like, let's have this guy on here from so-and-so podcast. Let's have this guy on here from so-and-so whatever.com. It's robotic and it gets boring. On here, you're getting fans' perspectives. You're getting guys that know Penn State football. Most importantly, they love it. You could tell Chris, it comes from the fact that he's a fan. He's like us. That's what we're going to have on here. And then eventually, if we're broadcasting live, even on here eventually, we're going to have guys like Jared hop on here and give their perspective, and guys like Lambda and all these guys that have been commenting on here consistently for a long time. We're going to have these guys hop on here. They deserve to come on here and talk because clearly they like our content. They're on here commenting all the time. So, yeah, it's a slow build, man. And Austin's doing it right now with his business. Austin has his own training business. You know, it takes time. And eventually I'd like to do this full time. But right now I have a full-time job. Austin has a full-time job. You just got to slowly build it. But that's the thing about, you know, Gary Vee talks about have a side hustle, build your side hustle. I don't really go out and party and drink and all that stuff. I pretty much build this. That's what I do. So this is a side hustle. The reason people don't have them is because they don't want to put in the hard work. And that's what it is. It's hard work. It's patience. So it's going to take some time, but
it all comes down to your values and how you choose to prioritize your time. It's that simple. You know, and I'm very much the same way. It's not like I go out and party and really drink at all anymore or anything like that. No. I think those days are in the past for me. But one of the reasons, it's not the biggest reason, but one of the reasons is I could do that. But I think I can spend my time more wisely doing this other thing that's really important to me, whether that's the content for the show, you know, that we've been very consistent with, which has been really good, or building the business and expanding the business, opening up more opportunities to help more people, et cetera, et cetera. Like, the biggest thing to have is the understanding and the honesty and the ambition to have a vision, have a really great idea, and then you just go all in on the idea and you just work really hard at it. It matters. It matters. A lot of folks have you know, difficulties with really focusing on, you know, one thing and really truly dedicating themselves to doing that thing. But if you do that, man, your opportunity for success goes way, way, way up. And I think that's kind of you know, what we're both doing here with the show and me with my business and everything else. So I think we have all the core components are exactly what they need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And Jared, thanks for all your comments. Yeah, it's eventually we're going to get there. And the next step really right now for me is making some more commercials, possibly starting another show with Anthony. And then we're going to get into some like restaurants, do live, because really all we got to do that, use the restaurant's Wi-Fi, take a computer and 2 mics, and we're good. We can do it from pretty much anywhere. We do have a couple restaurants one restaurant that is interested in having us, and then I have another one that I'm going to look at. So that's like kind of the next step, because by advertising them, they're also advertising us. So it's like, you know, it's a two-way street. But yeah, Jared said, company or band, pay your dues and want it more than anyone else and work to make it or die trying. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. You know, we're just talking to Chris about Calm Radio. That was a lot of work. That's hard work. This is hard work. It's a lot of work, but you got to like it. You got to love it. I'm not expecting any handouts from anybody. If you guys can and want to, donate to us on Rumble. You can do that. That would help. You don't have to. We'd love to have you listening regardless. But that would help a little bit if you want to do that. That's one way you can donate to us. The benefit of working from home and basically being my own boss is I don't miss a show and can add to the combo. Yeah, I was going to say, Jared, you're pretty much always on here, so yeah, that's cool. You work from home. I'm trying to get something like that eventually, hybrid / remote. That'd be cool. But yeah, that's cool, Jared, that you work from home. But Austin, I gotta get ready. I gotta go to the gym. Got legs today. So, Jared, thanks again for coming on, being on here. Chris, thank you for coming on. Chris messaged me, said he had a good time. Yeah, it's good to have you on. We will be back on. I think we'll do Saturday, Austin.
Yeah, just touch base.
I told Jared Saturday again. And I like doing those dual shows. But Austin, I think next week what we'll have to start doing is the depth charts. We'll probably start that next week. We'll start. Dude, that's the thing about Penn State. There just hasn't been many hot headlines. I mean, we got some recruits, but yeah. Yeah, we'll probably do that Saturday. But all right, Austin, you can take us out, Jared. Good to have you back on, man. And a little different today with Chris, so.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good with Chris. That was good insight. Definitely knowledgeable guy. Definitely not afraid to be open and honest, which of course we always are on this show, which is important to us. But that is the final word. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking the video. Also subscribing to the channel. We have grown quite a bit on the subscribers here the last couple of weeks, which has been fantastic. Greatly appreciate that. And help us get to that 500 number and beyond. Ring the notification bell so you're notified when we go live or drop a new video or short. Mark's been doing a great job over there with that. And yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And as always, catch you in the next one.
See you guys.